You may be excited for Independence Day fireworks, but if you stay up past midnight tonight, you might find that the moon has something in store for you as well. An eclipse. Stick around to learn more about this eclipse and more in today's episode of Cabin Fever Astronomy with the Edelman Planetarium. Eclipses occur when a large object blocks part of another object's view of the sun. Put another way, they occur when one thing, such as the moon, passes through the shadow of another thing, such as the Earth. When we pass through the moon's shadow, we see a solar eclipse, and when the moon passes through the Earth's shadow, we see a lunar eclipse. Every shadow has two main parts, the umbra and the penumbra. The umbra is the darker part of the shadow, and the penumbra is the lighter part of a shadow, the part you're probably familiar with as the fuzzy area around the umbra. While someone in the umbra of a shadow wouldn't be able to see the sun, someone in the penumbra would see the sun partially blocked. Because eclipses are a matter of perspective, an object experiencing an eclipse doesn't have to be completely covered in shadow. We can see this during a solar eclipse when the moon's shadow covers only part of the Earth's surface. Depending on where you are on the Earth, you might see the moon entirely blocking the sun, might see it partially blocking the sun, or might not see it blocking the sun at all. With a lunar eclipse, we might see part of the moon darkened by the lighter penumbra while another part isn't in shadow at all, a penumbral lunar eclipse, or we might see one part in the darker umbra while the other is in the penumbra, a partial lunar eclipse. A totally eclipsed moon isn't completely dark, contrary to what you might think. Even though the moon is completely in the Earth's umbra, the Earth's atmosphere bends incoming light like a prism and focuses mostly red to its umbra, causing the moon to glow a deep blood-like red, a blood moon. Penumbral eclipses can be a bit hard to spot as they make just part of the moon appear only slightly dimmer than usual. That might be noticeable on its own, but the moon's surface isn't uniform. It has dark areas, called maria, and these already dark areas can make spotting a shadow pretty tricky. Unfortunately, tonight's eclipse is going to be a penumbral eclipse, and to make matters worse, the area in shadow will be in the northern part of the moon, an area already darkened by these maria. As a result, this may be a challenging eclipse to spot, so don't worry if you don't notice much of a difference. The eclipse will start when the moon starts moving into the Earth's shadow at 11:07 p.m., although you won't see anything then. The top part of the moon will darken further until it reaches its darkest point at 12:30 a.m., eventually returning to its normal brightness at 1:52 a.m., when it will have fully left the Earth's shadow. If you miss this eclipse, or if you just don't notice much during it, the next lunar eclipse will happen in the early morning of November 30th. That one will also be a penumbral eclipse, but the moon will pass far deeper into the Earth's shadow and should appear far darker than this one. Although we tend to think of ourselves and the Earth as somehow distinct and separate from the moon and everything else in the sky, celestial events like this remind us that we too are a member of the solar system, and, by extension, remind us of our place in the universe. Thanks for being with us today. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Cabin Fever Astronomy and that you'll get a chance to watch this eclipse. Don't forget to come back for our next episode, and we hope to see you then.